Welcome back to another episode of the Weekly InSalt, episode 305. My name is Wade. I'll be your host today. I'm joined by Laura. Hi, Laura.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Tired?
Me too.
It's awkwardly bright in here because we changed the light bulbs. So
I know. I feel like I need my sunglasses.
It feels more like work now instead of like being in a weirdly dim lit room with strangers. You know, sometimes it's crazy.
It's no longer the
It's
dark
keeping
dungeon.
me awake,
Yeah.
though.
Ches is here as well.
Yes.
Co-hosting, and then the Heisenberg of sound, Kurt Wallstrom.
I'm back.
I had a name
being
picked out
sick.
today. The audio dude.
Okay.
Yeah,
He's the dude.
he's the dude.
Okay.
Audio dude.
And Jim Santangelo joins us today.
Yeah.
Did I nail it?
You nailed it.
All right. From the Wine Academy of Utah.
That's right.
Yeah, you do.
Wine.
You made me nervous because you do this way more than we do. You've got your own podcast. You have a weekly show on X96.
Yep.
So hopefully we're making a good impression. Like, is our studio up to par?
Great
It's a little-
sound.
Thanks,
Great
man.
sound.
It's a
little
little-
bright.
I was
but
gonna
it's
say.
great sound.
This is your fault, Ches.
Okay.
But the Wine Academy of Utah, I was reading a little bit about you on on your website, and it sounds like you kind of started back in New York.
Yeah. So,
I saw that too. Hot dogs.
it was a hot dog stand that caused me into this. I grew up in a family that was very working class family. My parents owned their own business, and I was an only child, so I didn't have brothers and sisters. And the story goes, I found my voice in a hot dog stand, and the way that this happened was I was on the grill, and I was kind of shy growing up, and I was on the grill, and I noticed every time somebody came in over my left shoulder, the door to the counter, they were looking over at me. And it wasn't me. They were looking at the grill, seeing how many dogs were on the grill, how long they're going to have to wait.
Yeah.
And so, once I put that together, I would take the two cooking implements, and I would click and clack them together, and like click clack. I'm like, what you want? What you got? How many you want? How many you want? And I found my voice in this kind of thing, and that was my only experience in hospitality, cooking at a grill. So I come out here to the University of Utah and for college. And I had to get a job. At that time, it was a quarterly semester system. So things were just rapid fire. And there's no way I was going to get a full-time job during the day. Too many schedule changes, especially with college being the forefront. Yeah. So I go up to Stein Eriksen Lodge to get a job up there. So you can say I kind of exaggerated my restaurant experience. And I'll never forget the manager up there, Michelle, and she said, kid, you don't know shit about restaurants, but you got something I can't teach. You got personality, kid. And that's how she talked. She was great.
Yeah.
So that's where it started my career in hospitality.
Well, I'll probably give you a run for your money with wine today because I went through the full wine training at Olive Garden.
Oh, no.
They have wine training at
They have.
Garden. Wow.
Being in Utah, that was amazing to me because I was like, wait, I'm
cool.
getting paid to drink wine? You know, and of course, I was young, I was in college, and all the servers were pretty much being the trainees were younger, but the boss, he was in control of the wine bottle, so a little extra got in there occasionally. But no, so I know pretty much next to nothing about wine. But what kind of sent you down the path of focusing on wine?
It was a lot of times us sommeliers in the industry ask one another, what was the bottle? What was the bottle that got you in, that changed your life? That was like, oh my God, this is for you. It was not a bottle for me. It was a situational experience. And it was, again, at Stein's. And I grew up in an Italian Catholic family in upstate New York, and we had wine on the dinner table on Sundays. And but it didn't mean I knew anything about wine, right? But I at least knew what it did to the dinner table. So it brought family together. So I'm up there at Stein's. Stein Eriksen Lodge, for those that may not be familiar with it, it's a 5-star high-end resort that sits on one of the most expensive ski hills in the nation.
I'm very accustomed to the Stein Eriksen.
Yeah, are you?
I was detained by the National Guard there.
Well,
Now that's a
story
podcast.
Oh, we've talked about it before.
Yeah, this is when they thought that the Xerox printer copy
Yeah.
machine was a bomb or something.
Yeah, it was back during the Olympics.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Everybody was on high alert then, right?
Sure.
Holy cow! So I did not identify with these guests. The socioeconomics. They were very wealthy. They were very well-to-do families, and although I didn't identify with them socioeconomically, once a bottle of wine that maybe the grandfather took out of his case to share with the family, or ordering something that was meaningful, I knew what a bottle of wine, how it brought their family together. I knew what that felt like. I knew what that felt like. I may not have had a thing in common with these people, but I had that in common. And that was the situation that led me down the path.
And kind of kicked you off down the
me
long
off,
road.
yeah.
Yeah. And it sounds like ever since then things have been going great. I mean, if you go look at your website, you have a whole host of events that you offer, and it's not just wine. You do cocktails and other
Spirits
things and spirits.
Sake, cigar pairings. So the Wine Academy of Utah really was developed as an education and consulting company initially in 2007 when we started. And the reason I started it was to provide staff training, such as if Olive Garden wanted to bring in somebody outside to do new hire training, that was my primary service.
Okay, yeah.
But then the education, the thirst of education. Well, we'll see what I did there. The thirst of education. Boy, this 30 minutes can't go fast enough for you guys.
No, you're making our job easy.
He's clicking off time off the clock over here. Like, we're going to break.
Yeah, we'll make it real awkward. I'll just stare at the clock the whole time. Like 23 minutes and 5 seconds, guys.
That's why I sit with my back to the clock.
Yeah. So we do education, that education initially, but then that grew into certification and becoming a sommelier through the Wine and Spirits Education Trust. It's an English-based program in becoming the path of a master of wine. Mm-hmm. So we provide various certifications and levels in that. But then we also do, as you mentioned, consumer tasting classes with various venues in town, whether it's the Leonardo Museum or Tracy Aviary or a variety of a number of private, whether it's Red Ledges in Heber, which is a private community resort, or Kiln, or The Shop, which is kind of a WeWork co-working space. Mm-hmm. We do these monthly tastings, and then we also do in-home wine events. I touched on that briefly before the show, where we go in. It's like having a sommelier in the comfort of your own home. You view different themes, and we bring them in, provide the glassware, the wine, printed tasting notes, and a really nice 90-minute to 120-minute presentation and tasting. And then we're finally tour guides. We established in 2018 a tour through the Airbnb experience.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever heard of that.
I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, so it's super cool. So we created for when people come in and stay at Airbnbs, Airbnb established this next platform to solicit the person that's staying to say, hey, while you're here, do these cool things with somebody that's enthusiastic about this particular topic.
Yeah.
So I created something called the Whiskey and History Experience. It's a walking and tasting tour. It takes about 2.5 hours, and we talk about the rich history of distillation right here in Utah. And we walk you about town. I have a tasting room in downtown Salt Lake, and then we finish with a nice dram on Main Street right downtown.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Cool.
I mean, it makes perfect sense for Airbnb to create something like that, but then also someone like you being as deep into that world that you are, I'm sure, like, I kind of want to go on the tour.
You guys should. It'd be fun.
That would be fun. So
I would love to.
what's the, like, out of curiosity, the average price for an in-home 90-minute private thing?
So it's a per person price, minimum 6 people. It's $75 per person, 5 wines. So it's a lot of wines, and professional presentation. And you have different themes to select from. So you can have like Splash of Spain, Tour of Italy, California countryside. But we've also enhanced it. Excuse me, we've also enhanced it to the Manhattan cocktail, Taste of History, tequila mezcal tasting, rum and chocolate. So we have this whole host of
that got her.
Yes, and yes.
So I know the question that you've probably talked about this on other shows too, but I know the question somebody out there listening right now is thinking is, what do you think about not being able to get wine in the grocery store?
I think that's going to change. So we're a control state, right? So we're a state-run liquor, or a state-run kind of business model, and there's 16 other states in the country that are the same. This all happened after Prohibition. Prohibition prohibiting the manufacturing, distribution, and sales of alcoholic beverages that occurred in the United States between 1919 and 1933. Absolutely ironically, it was a Utah legislator that repealed Prohibition, and the papers in the country, there were two. One was naughty and the other was nice. The New York Post read the next day. So imagine this: the entire country can't drink; it's under Prohibition, and we're all going to vote to either keep it or to repeal it, get rid of it. The last vote cast to repeal it was from a Utah legislator.
No way! Wow.
Utah was under Prohibition, all but Summit County up in Park City, in 1917, 2 years before the 1919 federal law dropped. So whenever you have a country or even a county that doesn't drink, what do we call that?
Dry
county.
That's right. We call it a dry county. So the two gazettes, the New York Post read the next day after Utah repealed it, said, even the Mormons want us to drink.
Yeah.
So that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
And then there's this gazette, I kid you not, up in Wisconsin somewhere, and it said, dry state makes country wet again.
Dude,
go Utah.
Yeah, that newspaper, if somebody's hanging on to that has to be worth some money.
Oh my gosh, right?
Yeah, and you know what? I think that it's changing too. Alcohol is a particularly hard thing in Utah, especially for people who come to visit.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've been out somewhere and people just don't understand our weird laws.
I do think the Olympics coming here changed a lot.
Well, it's going to happen again.
I think you're right. I think with the Olympics coming, and we can only have so many pop-up liquor stores and wine stores to accommodate a weekend. What was that basketball, the NBA tournament?
The All-Star.
The All-Star game that we had. And they did a pop-up in the convention center. And that's kind of cool. But the Olympics is a bigger thing, and that did, as you pointed out, did change some laws. Huntsman changed the laws of the membership thing back in the day for 2002, for the 2002 Olympics. Yeah. It's my absolute and only opinion. I have zero basis or zero information or anybody's comment on this legislative-wise, but I think the Olympics in 2034, should we get them? I think they're going to have wine in the grocery stores, but it's still going to be control state. It's still going to be controlled by the state. That we're not going to get rid of. It makes way too much money. And the only thing, while I'm on a soapbox, the only thing I would wish that the state of Utah could adjust is the cost to licensees, to bars and restaurants, because we buy alcohol at the exact same price consumers buy alcohol, nix the tax, but then we have to pay quarterly sales tax anyways. So at the end of the day, if they can give us a little break over here, that would be great.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think everybody's always had a problem with making the extra trip, and it's nice being out of Utah and you're just already at the grocery store buying food and you can just go right down the wine aisle.
Or a gas station.
Well, it would be irresponsible of us to suggest anyone going on the highway towards what it begins with a W in Nevada, Windover or something like that. And it would be not responsible for us to say you take the first off ramp. At the end of the off ramp, you bang a left, and at the main street, you go right in 1.4 miles, and you look to your left, and there's a Lee's liquor store or something like that. I think it's called Aisle 4. Aisle 4.
This is all just legend, though. We're not sure about it. Definitely don't check it out.
And there's not some other medical facility there too you might want to visit.
Now you're just showing off.
Not saying that you've been there.
Take a left at the gas station.
So I imagine, along with wine and spirits and stuff, you probably also enjoy food. What would
big foodie.
What's like one of your favorite spots to eat in Salt Lake?
It changes. It ebbs and flows with new restaurants. I'm a big downtown Salt Lake guy. So Ochre Restaurant over on 100 South and 4th East approximately is excellent. Andrew and Angie Fuller operate that space. It's a really great restaurant. Urban Hill, brand new. They have Hearth and Hill up in Park City. Yeah, in New Park. Urban Hill is really good. Bijan, Michael Bijan runs the beverage program there, and Brooks is the owner. He owns a couple of operations. I've been really jazzing Matteo lately, brand new restaurant, Italian joint. Very good. Matteo is the name of the gentleman who owns and operates, young man. And his mom's making focaccia in the morning. She's teaching him how to roll the pasta.
That's amazing.
They're finishing their risotto. If you go, you got to get the risotto for the table because risotto on your own is too much.
Yeah.
So you get it for the table, and they finish it with a 55-year-old balsamic from their hometown in Italy.
Wow.
So these are like the kind of cool, fun places. There's a couple of ghost kitchens that are going on. There's the Salt Egg City, best egg sandwich in the city that nobody knows about.
Wow.
It's in ComCom Kitchen, which is a collaborative kitchen, and they've got a little side door that you can go to. And then there's a calzone and stromboli place that, oh my God, I can't believe I'm forgetting the name. It's Marcato. Marcato, and it's Total Ghost Kitchen by Square Kitchen over there, and another commissary kitchen space. So Salt Lake's got some very passionate people in its town that, it's not easy. Margins are thin.
Yeah.
And if you get into the restaurant business, you better want to.
Yeah.
100%. There's a lot of work involved.
I think that's been great with everybody has their, I guess, downsides to the valley growing so quickly, but it comes with great side effects. Like we're starting to get really, really good food here. And it's not. I don't think that Salt Lake has ever really been on the map for like, you got to go to Utah and try this, other than maybe like the pastrami burger, or funeral potatoes, things like that.
True.
But like we're getting really good restaurants that you can go out and have a great meal for a decent price. It's not like it used to be where it's fast food or cheap food and then really high-end food.
Right.
There's a good middle ground there now.
Yeah, I'm hungry for a stromboli now. Haven't had one. I'm from New York, too. So.
There you go,
Did you enjoy working in the hot dog stand?
I did, because I found my voice there. It was a real... I was 15 or 16, maybe a little older, and I was a really young, impressionable kid. And now I grew up in the hair salon industry, so I was on the floor of a salon, sweeping and rinsing perm rods, folding towels, while my friends on Saturdays were cutting lawns to make money. I was getting tipped out by pretty girls. So.
Hey, you can't beat that.
I was going to say, that sounds like a horrible job, but now I get it.
Yeah.
I was just telling my son earlier, I got a tip last night. I'm like, hey, I got a tip. Check it out. I got a tip jar that I throw all my tips in, right? And I said, one of my taglines on some social media site, I can't remember, it's I've been shaking people down for loose change since the 80s.
I like that.
I've been getting tipped out all my life.
So I guess going back to wine a little bit, I guess a good question for me to ask, because I literally don't know, like, what's something that I should look for in a good bottle of wine?
So, yeah, that's a good question. So, it's always that bottle that you want to get, like, what's the best bottle under $20, right? And one thing is the specific, how specific of a region that the wine comes from. For example, there's a Pinot Noir out there for $21 by Rodney Strong from the Russian River Valley. Now, I could spend $20 on a bottle of wine and it'll just say California, which would imply the fruit is sourced from throughout California.
Right.
But if you're saying Russian River Valley, that's where the fruit's coming from, and that specificity comes through in the bottle.
Okay.
So I would share that as what are you gonna, and then again, wine is like art. It's an appreciation, Somebody can look at a painting that's all brushstroked with midnight black with a streak of red, and I'd be like, okay. And another person's like, their mind's blown by the, and they appreciate it far more or whatever.
Yeah, I think one thing that also really intrigued me is like wine pairing specifically, and I think that's where you and Ches ran into each other. Was at a what was it, a
whiskey and cigar
pairing. I mean, I guess you just taste the whiskey or the wine, and then you're like, taste the food, and you're like, that works, or is there like a
that is
technique?
The biggest thing that keeps me in this game is pairings, food and wine, spirits and cigars, just these two things that have nothing to do with each other, right? That are consumable, I guess, is the commonality, and how to pair with them. So the principle, and it's all principle based. A lot of people think like, did you and Chef get together and taste this and do a variety? We're like, no, it was an email like twice because it was based on principle. And the principle is if you have a white wine, for example, Sauvignon Blanc, let's say, and if you've ever had a Sauvignon Blanc, it's this light bodied, it's got citrusy notes of lime and grapefruit, and it's kind of like, it's acidity on your palate. It's really tart. Well, that acid drops down with either salt or acidity in food.
Okay.
But you can't make the food super big and full-bodied because you also have to match the body of the food with that light body of the wine.
Okay, that makes sense.
So maybe ceviche on the citrusy side, the acidic side with the food. Salad with a mixed green salad with a green goddess vinaigrette and maybe some sliced chev, and then or just some salty food. So a piece of cheese. If you've ever had a Cabernet Sauvignon on its own, it's like it's kind of dry. All the tannins come through. Yeah. Have a little piece of cheese. Yum, 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 yum. You have the cheese all over your palate. Then you sip the wine like, ooh, this is much smoother because it's the salt knocking down the tannic structure of that wine. So it's principle based.
That totally makes sense. So it's much more like
it's your Olive Garden training coming back.
It is, man. I'm relearning, shaking that rust off. I think
I'm gonna go get some more breadsticks.
Yeah, man. Unlimited first course. Olive Garden. Olive Garden, not a sponsor, by the way. Yet. We'll just take breadsticks.
So obviously, when I was listening to you say the Olive Garden thing, I was in my head envisioning this is how you open the bottle.
They did teach us that. There is a very specific way to open the bottle, even weirdly enough for Olive Garden. There is a specific way. They gave you a wine key. Yeah. They taught you how to use the wine key, which is funny to me because some people that I give a wine key to open a bottle, they look at it like it's some ancient contraption.
Yeah. How does this work?
Yeah. But there was a specific way, and then they taught you how to pour it. And then there's also a very specific thing that I never knew about. It's that usually whoever bought the bottle of wine, you'll have them do a little taste test first, because wine, just because it's an unopened bottle doesn't mean it's always going to be good. There are bottles that can go bad.
That's right. That's right. The people always ask, what am I supposed to do with this first pour? And I tell consumers as well as servers alike, it's not that first pour. When you order a bottle of wine, you're presented the label to confirm that that's the bottle that you ordered. Then there's the proper standard to open it, removing the capsule, driving the corkscrew down, pulling out, leveraging out your cork without a pop, just presenting the cork. Presenting the cork is of tradition to confirm that wine has never been open report, because some unsavory characters in the mid 1700s would thieve high-end bottles out of the finest chateaus and restaurants in Paris and London, and then fill the wines back up with plunk, inexpensive wine, and then put a piece of wood down there and then wax seal it and then sell it back on the open market. So
really smart idea.
Yeah.
Didn't last forever, but
didn't last forever. So the presentation of the cork is tradition to confirm that is the original wine. So you're not supposed to I love when people grab the cork and they're like, oh, yes, reminds me of Napa. No, do you ever get there? Dolly and I always go every season. And it's just like, Hammer, it smells like cork. Now, there are some things.
I don't know why you're doing that. It just smells like cork.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But there are some things you can get from the cork, like the pliability of it. If it's super hard and dry, that might be the storage condition. Or if there's a vein of wine going right up the side, that means that bottle's been stored on its side for an extended period of time, and gravity's taken its toll. And so there are things there, but that's a tradition. Now, when you pour the wine, that's the confirmation to confirm that the wine is sound. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not to see if you like it or not.
Yep.
This isn't a taste test. It's not like, oh, I really don't like this. Sorry, Charlie.
You already bought the bottle. We opened it.
Right. And that's hard in hospitality because you want to be hospitable to guests. But that's happened to me as a sommelier. I've been burned twice with something like that. And it was, we managed that. The wine was fine. They just didn't like the two separate bottles that they ordered. I'm like, what's going on over here? And we would just sell it by the glass at the bar. But that's that's the tradition and process for everyone is expected.
Yeah.
How many people bring their own wine?
Yeah, here, if you were in New Jersey when I was a sommelier, you get thrown out because that's not a typical thing in every market. So we're very fortunate that you can bring wine in. People bring in their own wine far less than you think.
Yeah.
Yeah, less than half. So people bring in their own wine for two reasons. One, the obvious, save a couple bucks, which it really doesn't. And we try to teach service staff to identify that wine and try to buy into that wine, build into your menu in that wine of what food items are going to pair with that. Because then that makes the guest, you're positioning that guest. You're in control. You want to position that guest to say, I get it, you brought in your own wine. You're not verbalizing this. But through behavior, say, our mushroom ravioli tonight's going to go, our mushroom stuffed ravioli with a cream sauce with a little truffle over it or whatever. It's going to go really nice with this Barbera that you brought in. And the guest is going to be like, but while we open that up and let it breathe, and I'll bring some wine glasses, who wants to start off with a cocktail? Who would like to start off? Because that's not going to go with anything first course. Yeah. Like you just, you ride them right in. And that's an aggressive thing to say, but, we are in hospitality. Margins are very thin. This is what I'm doing for a living. What are you going to do? Bring in your own steak too?
You're not wrong.
It's just so that's a very critical. I'm being very hostile in that, and but then the second reason people bring in their own wine is it's a special bottle. And it's a special occasion. And I love that. And that's when you can really say, you know what? And I've even had wine handed to me to try this wine because it meant something to them. I bring it right to the kitchen. We talk to the chef, and we'll do a mid-course comp, and he'll reduce. I'm like, hey, chef, you got any more of that pancetta with the asparagus? Let's sear it down, deglaze the pan with a little bit of this wine, reduce the streak, and he'll swizzle it on the, he'll do a nice a brush stroke on the plate from the reduction, and then I bring it back to the guests unexpectedly. I'm like, the chef was so inspired by the wine that he came up with this dish, and we set it down, and the people, tears well in people, and that's the peak of hospitality.
100%.
So, there's this big arc of, hey, Hammer, you brought in your own bottle of wine. Nice.
What, you a wino now?
To all the way to those great experiences.
Yeah, and you know what? I've always said on this show, and just thought this in general, that if a listener is out there and you haven't been to have a really good meal, do that at least once a year if you can afford it. Go somewhere you normally wouldn't go on an occasion and spend like the $150 a person or whatever it might be. It seems expensive, but you will leave that meal with a whole different mindset and a whole different, you just feel good. When you eat good food, you just feel good, especially at a place where the hospitality is like that, where they actually care and they want you to have the best experience, and they're all in the same train of thought, to make the best experience. There's nothing better than that.
Well, Lakai and Log Haven just got recognized for James Beard qualification this year. Yeah, we had a couple of restaurants in Utah in the western region. But Log Haven in particular runs a real tight ship. They have their management team is cohesive. They've been there for over 20 years. And that's the type of place that you're going to find that attention to detail. There are other restaurants in our community, certainly, but Log Haven is one that is definitely to be recognized.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're going
It's
to
on
take
my
a
list.
real quick break. Unless you have, did you have
No,
something?
I said that's on my list now.
Okay, great. Let's
I
take
love good food.
Oh, I love good food. I could tell by the beginning of
I
the
know.
episode, as soon as you mentioned the first thing about food, I could tell she was hungry.
Well, and then you bringing up that, going and spending that 150, 200 bucks, whatever. Reminds we haven't done that in a while.
There you go.
Kind of, we have. I went to.
Okay, I haven't.
Yeah, there's a place downtown that's called the Edison House, and it's like a private club type thing.
A social club.
A social club, yeah. I know the sous chef down there, and he was nice enough to get us invited.
Oh,
and
nice.
We drove in the middle of a blizzard. Like, it was that snow squall that just came through the valley, and I'm like, I could tell the look on like Kurt's face, and I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, I don't want to drive in this, but we've got a reservation at the Edison House. I don't know how often this is going to pop up. We should just go.
That's cool.
And was it good? It was awesome.
Yeah,
it really was.
Chef Buzz down there is pretty awesome. He came from Palette.
Okay,
and the sous chef, who's your buddy?
Taylor.
Taylor, and
Close.
he came from Pago, didn't he? Or
he came from Bambara.
Bambara. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But he's been at a number of places too, and
Yeah.
he says that Edison House is by far his favorite place that he's ever worked, just because it is that higher level, great food, and it's the social club atmosphere. So they're not really catering to the masses; they're catering to the people who do have the memberships. At Edison
It's
House.
pretty nice. We do, and I know you want to go to break, but we do events down there as well with the Wine Academy of Utah. We do events, and I'm very fortunate to be a founding member there. So I have a membership there at Edison House. So it's fun to be able to go in the afternoon, knock out some emails, play a game of billiards, maybe have a glass of rosé or something. You know, if it's not too late in the day,
or too early in the morning.
Yeah. About 11 a.m. What pairs? It's situational pairing at that point. Rosé, I don't want to have tequila. That's ridiculous. It's not even 1 o'clock yet.
We'll start that at 1:30.
Yeah, 1:30. 1:05. Give or take.
All right, you know what? We'll be right back after the break. And we're back.
Hey.
Back with Jim. Thank you so much for being here today, by the way.
You got it.
You make it so easy. You've done this enough times that it's like, maybe we can all just go and you just handle it,
We'll just leave him in here talking. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, why are we here? He's the professional. I was mentioning this to Laura on the break. I said, would you ever be interested in doing like a very professional wine pairing with only fast food?
Yeah, that would be interesting.
We do popcorn and wine pairing.
Oh, okay.
We do over, I forget the season, over the holidays, over Halloween, we do candy and wine pairing.
Ooh.
One of my favorite wine pairings is not only the popcorn, but potato chips.
Oh, that would be cool.
All that saltiness, so like salt and vinegar.
Oh.
So the vinegar, that acid pairs with high acid whites, and then you can go down to like cheddar cheese encrusted for your cabs, and then sour cream and onion for shards. So like there's these fun things that I really like pushing the envelope with for consumer tasting classes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that there's probably endless amounts of things you can do, right?
Yeah, totally.
I think we were joking around thinking it was more like, okay, what would you pair with a McDonald's cheeseburger and fries?
Yeah.
I'm sure it would work just the same way.
Taco Bell.
but-
No, yeah, and I haven't done In-N-Out Monster Burger pairings, but if I were to, because I saw the In-N-Out over here in your neighborhood on the way over, and there was a line. Oh, yeah. It was 11 o'clock. I'm like,
There's
what's
a line
going
there
on over
all
here?
day, 24 hours a day. That line is into the Walmart parking lot, and it makes me just like sigh at Utah sometimes.
That place sucks.
But then you can go in and get out before like the first car's like even like gone from like the where you order to like the window.
Yeah, but still, I mean, I love In-N-Out, but not that much.
I like their what do you call it? Their hidden menu or underground menu or
Yeah.
secret menu?
Animal style.
Yeah,
Yeah.
animal style. Yeah.
They kind of pioneered the secret menu thing, like animal style 4x4.
Yeah.
Before you know it, you're saying all these things and you sound like an idiot at the drive-thru.
But okay, so back to the question: what would you pair with it?
So with we did this one time in Park City TV. I used to do a weekly show up there called Wine of the Week. and we were talking about food and wine pairing. So I was saying there was somebody that wrote into the show, so this sponsored why we were doing this. It was, okay, imagine having a cheeseburger. You bite into that cheeseburger, you just got all that, the fatty richness, the cheese in your palate, and to wash it all down, you reach for a glass of whole milk, and you taste that milk. What's going to happen to your palate? That milk's just going to coat and paint all that fats and those solid onto your palate. The next bite of burger, it's just going to be textural. You're not going to get nearly as much flavor.
Yeah.
That's why we have a Coca-Cola with a soda pop with your burger, because all that acid and bubble just kind of cleanses it all down, so the next bite is as good as the last. So with those two examples to drive to, well, what would you have with it? Well, sparkling wine's pretty dang good.
Okay.
You know, sparkling wine's pretty dang good. You can also, with meat and protein and fattiness, that's where you have your bigger red wines, your Cabernet Sauvignon, your Shirazes, things of that nature. Also work well. And those are two very different wines, styles, and they work for different reasons, but it's all principle based.
Yeah. So really, that's when you boil it down to the principles of a wine pairing. You can basically use those principles across the board to pair pretty much with anything.
Pretty much with anything, and that's why we created the popcorn and wine and the potato chip and wine pairing.
I think the
like
potato
Shiraz.
chip. What?
I do like a Shiraz.
Yeah.
Shiraz and Red Zin. Those are my favorites.
Nice.
I don't think I've ever seen you drink wine.
I'm not a big wine guy.
Maybe we need to start. We need to learn more, you know? I think it is is wine one of those things that the more you know about it, the more interested you are to know even more?
Yeah, it's a never-ending cycle. Yeah, there's always more to learn. There's always new vintages coming out, new wineries coming out. One of the biggest things that occurred in the wine industry today, in my opinion, are natural wines. This big thing about natural wine sustainability and biodynamics. When I talk to, and it's a very, it's a big argument. Like it's a trigger point with some wine guys, and I feel what natural wine did to the wine industry is what snowboarding did to skiing in the 80s. It reset it. It brought in a whole new market. It saved it. And natural wines is engaging in conversation in the wine world, and it's also bringing in a new audience of the mixologists, because their wine to them was their mom's Chardonnay and their dad's Cab, and now this is kind of weird stuff and flavorful and like all this cool things, and that's great. I think that's great. Whether I like it or not is not even in the conversation. It's just a topic of dialogue that we can have in the wine industry, and I think I'm really happy that it happened.
Yeah, I mean, I've only heard of like the very basics about natural wine. I don't even think I've tried one yet, but that is something that I've heard kicked around for a little while now. That's I mean, Action Bronson, everybody watches him on YouTube or TV doing his food stuff, and he's obsessed with it, you know, and so it's hit pretty heavily mainstream now. One thing that I do want to get your opinion on is how has like the wine industry and what you do changed over the course of the pandemic? Was it different before and after?
Yeah, it was. There's a lot more engagement, I think, after we did pivot, like everyone did, to online wine tastings. I was doing those across the nation. I even did my Airbnb platform. I created the Manhattan Cocktail Taste of History programming. We performed that only a half a dozen times, but nobody here in the States. I was doing it to people up in Spain and in Northern Europe. And so that was a lot of fun to be able to experience. And then afterwards, I think there was this big bump in attendance to events because everyone was like, we can go outside again.
Yeah.
You know, so 2022 was a big year. 2023 softened. This year, prices are high.
Yeah.
Everything's really expensive. I'm noticing even our events are $55, and we're considering our events at various venues, things like that. And that used to be the sweet spot price point, but I'm noticing a lower attendance. I don't think it's the quality of the programming, but I just think people are, $55. Maybe I'll just go out to a restaurant or maybe I'll just buy 2 bottles of wine or 3 bottles of wine with my girlfriends or guy friends and enjoy. But it's interesting. It's a consumer behavior and it's a price point. Everyone's kind of feeling it.
Yeah, I've noticed that too, especially when the price of everything's going up, and then it's, like you said, I think people think, I'll just go buy a bottle of wine.
Yeah. Well, and so we were talking about this, about that specifically in the pop-ups of the comm kitchens. Like, that's kind of a new concept here. Because probably too expensive to have a storefront.
Totally. I mean, to own and operate a restaurant and to produce food out of it, all that labor, front of the house, back of the house. Now all you are 3 people. Orders are coming in electronically, and all you have to do is bust it out. Somebody's even picking it up for the individual. Yeah. So there's a real interesting, we call them, used to be called ghost kitchens,
right.
And that was the big thing. And it created a whole new industry for certain.
I think Utah's still a state where we can't get alcohol delivered, right?
No,
that's right.
Yeah, in the mail or anything like that. Do you see that changing anytime?
So what I think could happen is in-state delivery versus be part of like a wine club from California and having it delivered to your door. So there's 2 conversations there. So in-state delivery or in-state ordering, driving up and picking it up at the wine store is going to happen. It got approved. We have the software for it. It's just a matter of legislation and the compliance to just pull that final trigger and to activate it. Maybe they can do it with 1 or 2 stores to make a model to see how, and then they can duplicate it to the stores that make sense. But we'll never really have a true ordering from a wine club if we all went to Sonoma and like, oh my God, this winery is so cool, and for $45 a month I can get 3 really cool bottles that I never could, or 2 bottles delivered right to my door. Sign me up. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Because the state's not going to get their tax. And that's what it's all about. Now, you can order from that winery, have it delivered to a state store, then you got to go get there. But it ain't going to be the $45. It's going to be a little bit more because of the taxation and things of that nature.
Yeah, I think that bums a lot of people out because I think some of those wine clubs are really cool. A great way to taste a bunch of different wines. Yeah. But like you said, you can get it delivered to the liquor store. And I think that's been around for a while.
Yeah.
That you can ship things to the liquor store.
Or beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's special order programming. Yep.
Yeah.
I think there's a limit on like what you have to buy though. I think for some of that, like you have to buy like a case or something instead of just one bottle. Maybe it's different with wine though.
Nope, it's a case.
Okay, yeah,
case of 12 or 6-pack, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Well, now I'm hungry and I want to try wine. So
hungry and thirsty.
Hungry and thirsty.
Do you do a lot of stuff up in like Park City and areas like that where it seems to be like more tourist centric and things?
Yeah, we do. We provide the whiskey and history experience up there. We are a line item on a lot of the organizations up there to get pulled up to perform a tasting but that's not my core market, as I actually thought it was gonna be when I first started. But it's a hugely transient population. Not only is it high visitors, right? So they don't care who I am. Yeah. They just need the service, right? But even those that operate and manage that, there's these companies up there. One, for example, is called Summit Event Services or RMC. They're these management companies that if you're a bunch of Toyota executives coming in with your spouses, you have 120 people at the Montage, and Montage Concierge ain't gonna create your agenda.
Right.
There's these sub industries, these businesses that's all they do. They take care. So they take care of your agenda. So I'm a line item with some of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But even those companies see their high degree of turnover. So it's really tough to penetrate that market. I'm sure I could, and I would. It would benefit me. But then you got the drive, and I know it's only 40 minutes. But it's just I'm a Salt Lake guy. I love the Valley. I do events as far north as Logan, all the way down to Cedar City. When we do our Utah Wine Festival over Labor Day weekend, that's a lot of fun. Where all the Utah wineries come about. We do some programming down there with our tastings. I sit on the judging panel. 9 a.m. We've got 73 wines we got to taste. It's a very dehydrating weekend, but I do it for the Utah. I do it for Utah. I do it for Utah. And the event's up in Logan. Have you guys ever been up to Logan before?
I've been to Logan, yeah.
They're real thirsty in Logan.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put it out there.
It's because they're all the way up north there. You know?
But they're very close to Idaho.
That's true. Yeah. And nobody would ever go out of the state of Utah
no.
to purchase alcohol.
No,
That's just
no.
crazy.
Not the state with an I or the state with a Y.
I
Or
like
W,
that.
I mean.
I like that you talked about the drive up to Park City, and that means that you do love the Salt Lake Valley. Because I do the same thing. People are like, "Yo, you want to go up to Park City?" I'm like, I don't really know if I want to go that far.
Yeah,
You know?
I know it's lame, and I got family up there. All my family lives up there. All the Polish side of my family lives up in the mountains. All the Italian side and the other side, they're like good New Yorkers. They went to Florida. So why do you want to go to someplace colder?
Yeah, that's funny. So how did you get started with X96, and how was partnering up with them? I'm assuming that was huge.
It was, and a few years ago, over 10 years ago, when they were over in the Trolley building where their Broadway media was, I ran into them at an event, a restaurant opening, and they asked me to come in for a feature called Ask an Expert. They used to have a feature, so I did that once or twice. In fact, the first time I ever met him, I was a sommelier on the floor at Donovan's Steakhouse. It's a restaurant out of San Diego, and I was a som there on the floor, and they did a marketing promotion through Broadway Media, and the three DJs came in, Carrie, Bill, and Gina, and it was Bill Allred who I first met. He was sitting there with his wife, and I didn't even know they were VIP. I didn't get the tag. Nobody mentioned it to me, which is what you're supposed to do. So I probably wouldn't have behaved any differently. But I came up and I was talking to him about the menu and a little wine. And I said, if you're thinking about going in this direction, you should have and I mentioned, I think it was a Gewürztraminer. And he said, I've never heard of that before. What is it like? I said, well, let me get you a little splishy splash.
Yeah.
And it's term splishy splash, right? And he still refers to it today. And that's kind of that's where our first meeting came, and it blossomed from there.
Yeah, and I bet it's so much fun doing like radio with them too. I've listened to them like, ever since I've been growing up. It's always Carrie, Bill, and Gina. X96.
And if you move away and you come back, people say they feel like they're home. They know that they're back home, and they get melancholy when they hear their voices back if they've been gone for 5 years or something. I've heard that a number of times from listeners. And going in every Friday morning, we have sponsorship. I'm very, very fortunate. My son asked me the other day, he's like, Dad, does any other wine guys, sommeliers do what you do? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if anybody has, the business that I do. I'm an educator. I do in-home consumer tasting events. I do venue events. I take people on tours. I have a weekly radio show. We now have a podcast. I'm on TV once a month. And, I do a little writing for local magazines. I'm like, if they do, they know how exhausting it is.
I was going to ask you what you do in your free time, but you don't have any, it sounds like.
Yeah, I sleep.
Yep. Hey, Kurt can relate to that.
Yeah.
He loves his sleep too.
Yeah. So you're grilling hot dogs. You come out here to go to college. What did you come out here to go to college for, and is this what you wanted to do?
Yeah, no, I came out here for a behavioral science degree, psychologist. I wanted to become a therapist, a psychotherapist, had that whole track planned out. But it was when I saw that bottle of wine do engage with that family, and I identified with that. And I do have a lot of my behavioral sciences of my degree that I apply. A lot of consumer behavior, a lot of cues that you read on the floor of a guest, the temperance of your staff. I haven't worked the floor for many, many years, but in my events, public speaking, things of that nature, guiding people with alcohol and trying to control a crowd of 56 people. I got a gig coming up for 235 people. I'm going to be mic'd up on a stage, trying to conduct a wine tasting that. My staff's going to be out there. That takes some experience, but also you have to have that psychology behind you and how to control the crowd and how to lead them and or not and be okay with it and not freak out. It's this whole kind of thing. But I've been very fortunate. I'm in front of a couple hundred people a month. And the other day I was at the Leonardo Museum great tastings, great culinary staff. Chef Deb there, give her a shout out. She's cute as a button, an awesome cook, and she really does a great job. But I was talking to the crowd. I was kind of, and this will happen to me sometimes. I'll like check out, but I'm still talking, and I'm like thinking about something else. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, bring it back in, bring it back in.
It's just like your mind goes on autopilot. You're like, words are coming out, but I totally do not even know what I said.
don't know what I said.
I need to focus.
Like when you're driving and you don't know how you got there.
I think that's happened to everybody. You go through an intersection and then you don't remember checking if the light was green. You're like, oh crap. But I think that, like you said, it takes definitely a certain kind of person to be able to do that up on a stage and mic'd up, and then the amount of work that goes in behind the scenes. We talked about it a little bit before the show, like even just doing a podcast. This is the fun part. We're in the fun part right now, and then the work starts like as soon as this ends. That's when the real work starts of finding guests and what are we going to do next week, or like your next gig you're always going to have to plan for. But you seem like you handle it well.
Yeah, I like it. It's fun. I was a very shy young man, and I think I'm making up for it. So that's where
I can't see that.
I know, right? Can you imagine? No, I'll tell you something. When I'm comfortable in front of, my wife and I are very opposite. I could be put in front of a couple hundred people, no problem, work the crowd. I find it most difficult when I'm at a dinner party of 6 people, 2 other couples, where my wife loves that, and she's the life of the party. She's such a good conversationalist. She's so smart. She's so humorous, and I'm like the little kid sitting there, because I don't know my role, and it's so funny. So I do find myself in those moments of shyness or just not as talkative and things like that.
I bet working at the hot dog stand helped a lot with that too, because you're just in the middle of it. And I think that's what kind of helped me a lot. I've mentioned on the show in the past, but I played drums in high school, and I think that's what gave me the I've just completely stopped playing in the middle of a song in front of hundreds of people, and it's like, well, everybody makes mistakes. You just learn to live with it. You feel horrible after it, and everybody says you did great, and you're like, oh sure. But that kind of being embarrassed sometimes gives you more confidence to go do those things. And I almost find it easier being in front of a lot of people than just being with a few people, because I don't know, I just focus on the task at hand, like playing a show. But it's interesting to get different perspectives on that too, Well, I don't know. Do you got anything fun planned for the future? Like, where's your business moving forward?
Yeah. So we've returned. The pandemic interrupted this. I'm a tour guide to Scotland. Okay. So I take people on an 8-day tour through Scotland. We've got one planned and coming up in May. We've got 11 tickets of 14 sold. I teamed up with Kim Dastrup. She's a yoga and meditative expert, and we're calling this Whiskey and Yoga Scotland 2024. So yes, awesome. You are downward dogging for your dram. That's what it's
I love that.
And so the touring and experience. So everything that has really moved into the industry has been into experience based. I learned that with the Airbnb experience and doing that. And everybody wants to have an experience. That's where the higher ticket value is, but it may be a lot more work and effort, but it's worth it because you're bringing people an experience fueled by your expertise and passion of a particular area. And I'm very fortunate that this will be my 6th trip to Scotland, 4th tour. Wow. So okay. I'm real lucky that I can do things like that. So I see myself in the future, to answer your question, on more tour-based experiences for people surrounding beverage.
Do you feel like in the present day, right now, that experience-based types of services are a lot more popular than they ever have been?
Yeah, it's the absolute driving force of the industry. And a lot of it is based on the consumers, because consumers are smarter today than they've ever been. Mm-hmm. We've seen that at cigar events where people are coming in, they're already familiar with one could say a luxury item, something that you don't always do every day or whatever. And when you're there, they just really appreciate it. They're in the moment. They're in the moment for this item that they're not doing every day. So it's kind of fun to see it.
Yeah, I've noticed that like just escape rooms and stuff that that like experience-based things have really taken a hold. And I think you're right. The consumer is getting smarter, and they want to know more rather than just go out and grab a burger and leave or whatever. They want to really know more about their product.
Paired with a Shiraz.
Yep. I think that'd be so fun. Just go get a bunch of maybe we'll have you back. We'll get a bunch of fast food and say what wine would go good with this.
That'd be awesome.
We'll buy the bottles and everything.
Well, I mean, if you're getting tacos, it's tequila.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. We could find a wine, I'm sure. Well, if you guys want to know more about Jim, or you want to go to the wineacademyofutah.com, and I'm sure you have social medias and things to plug anything you want.
Wine Academy of UT on all the socials. We have an upcoming event calendar right on the website, a great contact page. People contact me all the time with, I inherited this bottle. What do I do with it? Or just question, drink it. That's right. People always ask, when should I open up this bottle, or what food I wanted to make it epic? And if you ever have a special bottle of wine, make the food as simple as possible, because you want that wine to be the main character of that act, right, of that play. And you want your food to support that. If you have an epic meal with an epic wine, that's pretty awesome. But, any nuance of error that might occur, it's just there's too many things fighting for your attention on your palate. So I had a friend of mine, Erin. She had her grandfather who was a successful attorney. He was LDS, but he did his mission in France, and he befriended a family that had a huge Bordeaux estate, and they were winemakers. And he said, as this young missionary, when I get older and successful, I'm going to buy a case of wine from you every year. And they were like, oh, that's nice, but he did.
Wow.
And he realized what wine could do and being a successful attorney in a firm, he would gift it to clients and things of that nature. So she was the only non-practicing person in the family, so she inherited his cellar. So I went through the cellar and I evaluated it for her and organized it and things, and she gifted me a bottle. It was a 1988 Haut-Brion, some fancy chateau, fancy pants, right? So I'm like, Erin, look, keep the bottle. When you get melancholy, thinking about your grandfather, we'll go out to dinner. She's like, Jimmy, name any restaurant, we'll do it. I'm like, great. So she calls me a few months later. She's like, Jim, let's go get that bottle. Let's go get that dinner. I got the bottle of wine. I said, sure. And she's like, where do you want to go? Name the place. She's thinking, I'm going to go to Lakai. I want to go to Pago. I want to go to this nice. I said, you know what? On State Street, the Bayou, the beer place?
Yeah.
So they got the best sweet potato fries in town. Let's get a pile of sweet potato fries and pop this bottle. And she's like, are you kidding me? I'll take you to any restaurant in the state. And you want to go to the Bayou?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. So we go. We pop this bottle of 88. We have it. She's telling stories. Tears are flowing. We're laughing. We're crying. 4 businessmen from Chicago sit next to us. They're like, is that an 88 Haut-Brion? And I'm like, yeah, you want some? We got them a rocks glass. We're pouring it in there. And it was like, that's how you have a bottle of wine. That's and that I'll never forget that. She'll never forget that. Those 4 businessmen will never forget that.
Yeah.
Or we could have been a two-top in a fine dining restaurant and not talk to anybody but each other, and then worried about how much we allocated out and is it going with the food and everything. Who needs that aggravation? Let's just go and have an 88
What a great story.
That's amazing. And that goes back to the experience that you talked about. That was the perfect experience for that situation with that wine. You didn't need to make it more than it needed to be.
That's right.
That was good enough.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much, Jim, for being here.
Yeah.
That was a fast hour. I mean,
that's
we
nice.
got 3 minutes, but that's okay.
Nice.
Do you have anything else before?
No, now I want sweet potato fries.
You're just hungry.
Does anybody have any beverage questions I can answer? Anything
He's
at all?
here.
All right.
Open it up to the class.
Hey, this has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate being on your show. I love the name InSalt. It means so many different things, like in Salt Lake City. I didn't even pick up the
insult
of InSalt. So thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so
welcome.
much. Yeah,
Yes, thank you.
This has been your weekly insult. This is another reason why I love the podcast, because it's like I would probably never have a chance to talk to you if it wasn't for that one.
And I've actually had their sweet potato fries, and they are good.
Oh, they are very good.
I haven't been to the Bayou in a long time. I think it's time to go back.
Yeah.